In this video, we want to explore what does it mean for us to learn to manage ourselves, in the midst of anxiety. As usual, we want to remember a few concepts that we have been clarified in previous conversations. When we talk about anxiety, what we're talking about? We're talking about that intense emotion that we experience when we face a real or a perceived threat. Fear has to do a lot with anxiety, right? But it's not only fear, it's not only an emotion, it feels real in our bodies, it changes the way that we think and we see and we hear and we perceive. So anxiety is a very powerful element and it's completely unconscious, it's automatic. So that's anxiety. We have talked also about predictable patterns of reactivity to that anxiety that are part of what we call our autopilot. We don't plan, we don't think so much how to react in moments when anxiety gets triggered. We just simply react, and those ways in which we react are predictable. They have patterns, and we have learned about them. And we have talked also about how important it is to learn to see anxiety in ourselves. And we see anxiety in ourselves, in our bodies, and in the ways that we feel and the emotions that we perceive. And we see anxiety also in the ways that we kind of see or hear the experiences that we are living. We call it the meanings that we make of the experiences that we are living. And we say that it's very important to see this anxiety then or there in us, because that is what's going to help us to be able to overcome moments of anxiety. So today, we want to talk about this goal of learning to manage self in the midst of anxiety. We have been building into this capacity, right? It is important to remember that the goal is to learn to manage ourselves. The goal is not to eliminate anxiety. We cannot do it. That is impossible. We cannot eliminate anxiety in the world. We cannot fully control any circumstance or experiences outside of our lives. And any circumstance outside of our lives has the potential to create or to trigger anxiety in us. So the goal is different. It's kind of a self-control kind of goal. It's the goal of how can I manage myself in moments of anxiety? Who do I want to be in moments of anxiety? It takes work, but it's possible. So the work of anxiety, as I call it, has to get this goal, we have two perspectives, two approaches that we want to cover in this conversation. First is to learn to reduce our reactivity. So the first one has to do with moments of anxiety, the real moment when the heat is up and boom, anxiety is triggering me. How can I learn to be less anxious or manage myself in those situations, in the moment, anxiety in the moment? The second perspective is broader. It has to do with my lifestyle. What does it mean for me to cultivate a life or a lifestyle that is less anxious? So let's start with the first approach, the first perspective, learning to reduce our reactivity in anxious moments. This is a very helpful approach. It's very conceptual, but it will give you a good handle of the options and the choice, and in a way of the freedom that you and I have in moments of anxiety. So when anxiety gets triggered, when the circumstance gets into moments when anxiety is present, you have, in a simple way, oversimplified probably, three options. The first option is that you can become an anxious presence. In that moment, you can choose to be an anxious presence. That usually happens automatically. You immediately take on the anxiety that is in the system or in the people that you are with, and you become anxious, and you start passing your anxiety to the system. So more anxiety. Usually it's not very helpful, right? That first option. The second option has to do with becoming a non-presence. What do I mean with that? A non-presence is I just choose to distance or to disappear. And I can do that physically. I just withdraw and I leave the conversation. Or I can do that emotionally. I can do that actively, or I can do that passively, right? When I don't respond to the phone, or I don't answer your text. Now, this might look better in the short term. I don't have to deal with the pain of that conversation, but usually you might have that experience too. It doesn't change anything. It just creates a longer um, status quo that sometimes is characterized by broken uh, or shallow relationships. So that is the second option, non-present. And there's a third option. And the third option we believe is a good possibility for all of us, is that you can become a non-anxious presence. Non-anxious presence. A presence that, even though is still in the middle of the anxiety, instead of taking on the anxiety of other people, is able to actually calm and share or pass on some level of peace in the midst of the context. And that is what we are aiming towards, right? So three options. And what I want to highlight here is, remember that you have an option. You are free. You have a choice. And this somehow clarifies this choice. Anxious presence, non-presence, or a non-anxious presence. So how you do that? To become a non-anxious presence, you need to learn to kind of, if you want, run a different script in your mind. And this is very easy and quick. You can talk about this very quickly. It's harder to do, but it's very simple. So imagine that you're in a moment of anxiety. Anxiety gets triggered. You don't have control over it, but you now have the skill to see anxiety. Or you say, I'm in this anxious mode. I see my hands are sweating, or I see myself raising my voice. Okay, you have recognized anxiety is present. You have done a lot of reflection of what happened. So you take the first step of this new script is stop, pause, take a break, go to the bathroom, ask for a minute, stop. That's probably the first and most crucial element of this new script. You have to learn to stop the autopilot of engaging. And sometimes you do it right before, sometimes you do it after a couple of minutes in which you see reactivity. Doesn't matter. Practice. Stop. Pause. Then the next step in this script is calm down. How do you calm down? What's helpful for you to calm down? Some people count to 10, other people go to the restroom and just try to pray, and all that is helpful. Breathing is a great suggestion. Inhale and take 4 seconds. Count 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, hold your breath for 4 seconds, and slowly exhale for 4 or 6 seconds. And do that 3 times, and you will see how your body, that's a good part of breathing, your body gets a kind of a release. And that helps you a lot in anxiety, emotionally, in your mind, you're going to be more clear. Calm down. Do whatever is helpful for you to calm down. Then listen. Come back whenever you're ready to that moment, to interaction with anxiety, to that conversation, and come back not to fight, not to exert your point, but come back with one goal: listen. Remember, anxiety stops your capacity to objectively listen what is being said. When you start listening to your own meanings and to your own fears and stuff, don't. That's what you stop. Now you're calm. You can come back with the goal of saying, what this person is really telling me. Listening is hard. It's practice, something that you can practice and become better. What are you really saying? Ask for questions. Be curious about what we are saying. What is really being said? What do you mean with that? So listen. As you listen, you will notice that your ability to think clearly, objective thinking in a way of real, what's really happening, the facts that are happening, what is really being said. And as you're ready, according to your best thinking, your best guiding principles, the person that you want to be, then speak and participate. This is not about just repressing yourself and just don't say anything. There might be moments in which it's very important to say, I don't have an answer, or the only answer I have is not really pretty right now. I know that it's not coming from a good part of me. You don't have to respond. But if you can, or whenever you're ready, speak, express, participate, say what is so for you. That is the element of the whole and full connection. And remember, stay connected. Part of the tricky things of anxiety, the lies of anxiety, is that we are to isolate from others. That I can only be with people who think like me, who agrees with me, who agree with me. And any marriage, healthy marriage, might witness and testify and say, no, you don't. You can actually uh, stay connected and love and respect people who don't think like you in everything, who don't agree with you in everything. That's the case of my wife and me. We don't agree in everything, but we love each other deeply and we respect each other. So that is what you get as a new script. And again, this is really easy to put 6 words or 6 steps, right? But hopefully they are simple enough for you to memorize, to put in your phone, and to practice. You need to practice this. So that gives you an option to be different in moments of anxiety. And obviously, this is something that you won't do perfectly at the beginning. So just remember that to learn to become this non-anxious presence, you need practice. And nobody that I know does things perfectly at the first time. We all need practice. Keep doing it. You can learn. I can learn. I cannot be perfect at it today, but I can learn. And remember that in order to practice this, you need to kind of sort of increase your capacity to tolerate some level of discomfort or emotional pain. It's easier to distance, to withdraw, or to exert my way, right? That is not the person that we want to be. There's a lot of cost for it. It's harder to stay in the pain of practice. The best analogy probably is working out physically. If you haven't worked out, you're learning to work out, you're going to have to endure a little bit of pain. You don't need to have excessive pain, but there's pain, and the pain will reside, but you have to go through it. There's no way around it. So those are things that are important things for you to know. And then remember the tools that you have for this practice. You have those tools already. We have talked about these tools in previous conversations. Introspection, this ability to come to myself and to reflect, to meditate, to journal. What happened, when it happened, where did I feel it, who do I want to be, what worked, what didn't work, what is God telling me through all of this. That is in this introspection. The presence of God, if you want, you can reflect and learn this insight. That's one tool. Another tool for you is dialogue. Is this ability to have a conversation, not because you want to teach others or correct others, but because you want to share your learning, because in the sharing of your learning increases, deepens, and you bring a lot more clarity to your own ideas as you share them with somebody. Finally, as a tool, remember that you are to be compassionate with yourself, and you can give yourself second chances. You have the ability, the right to give yourself second chances. And this might look like I had a moment of anxiety and reactivity that I was not pretty with my wife last night, for example, and I'm not really happy about that. We went to sleep with this, and here I am in the morning, and I choose: can I go into the shame path, and here I am again, I'm a mess, or I'm a victim of this or that, or instead of that, I have the option to actually give myself a second chance and say, come back to my wife, clean up my mess, express that I want to be sorry, hear whatever impact I have created in her because of my reactivity, but actually say, yesterday you told me this and I responded that. Now, let me have a second chance and tell you what I would really like to respond is this. After thinking, after praying, after considering, this is my response. So you see, it's a second chance, and you have enough second chances to be able to practice. So that is in this first goal. This is the second goal. Let's talk about what does it mean to cultivate a less anxious lifestyle. This is like the workout too. It's something that is, it doesn't happen in the moment, but it requires some practice and intentionality. And first, it's important also to remember, you and I live in a culture. I'm not trying to judge the culture. It's just the culture that we live. And it's not easier or harder, I don't know, the times of Jesus or the time of other people. But we are impacted by our culture. And the culture has given us this kind of mentality. We talk about this mentality of not enough. It's a not enough mentality that wears us down and tears us down. I will never be enough. I need to be better than I am because what I am is not enough. Imagine the anxiety that comes down. Or I can never do enough. I don't have enough time. I have to do more. The truth is that time is real. I mean, I cannot do more in 1 minute than whatever 1 minute allow me to do. But sometimes culturally we do more things. We're called. We kind of start over functioning and over committing, and sometimes we think that we can do everything, right? Or I will never have enough. And there might be moments in which I need to find resources to get what I need, but there are many moments in which if I sit and I realize, what I realize is that I have what I need. Is that I want to more, and that's okay. But you see that distinction. I need what I have. I have what I need. Anyway, a non-enough mentality has an influence in your lifestyle, makes you commit more, do more. So consider what will it be to have a mentality in which there's an enough mentality. And I'm going to offer to you 4 practices that have been helpful for me and for other people I work with. You can find a lot more of information in this practice. I'm going to mention it kind of briefly and tell you about them in order to cultivate a lifestyle with less anxiety. So the first one is the practice of Sabbath. Sabbath. This tradition that comes from the Christian tradition, from Judeo tradition, Jewish tradition, is this instruction, this invitation of God to rest one day out of the week. So there's a rhythmic invitation of God saying, there's one day that is my day, says the Lord. Is a day of rest. It's as much as God's is as much as rest. And let me say that this is not only a day off, right? A day off to take care of the lawn or to do all the chores at home. This is actually a time of rest, an invitation to stop, not only working, but stop worrying, stop being anxious, stop being argumentative, stop being judgmental, stop being not enough. It's a day in which I actually can trust that I am enough, trust that God will provide for me enough, and that what I can do is enough. Actually, I can stop today on the Sabbath day because I can trust that with the help of God, I have done enough. Think of how healthy is that, right? Think how we learn this trust in this moment. There's a lot more to say. Actually, in the podcast of Faith Walking, you can find a series of rhythms of Sabbath. I think 6 conversations that go a little bit more in depth of what Sabbath means. I like this quote from Walter Brueggemann that says, Sabbath is not simply a pause that refreshes, it's that pause that transforms. So, Sabbath helps you a lot to learn to stop and rest and cultivate a life with less anxiety. Another practice, also, I'm going to just mention it briefly, there's so many things to do, is contemplation. This ability that I have to slow down and be present and actually observe what it really is in front of me. We live in a life in which so quickly, and we live in our minds, we are thinking as we do. Right? We drive through that tree every day and never see it until the day in which we're taking a walk and we are in this attitude of contemplation, and suddenly we realize how beautiful is that tree, how big is the shade that it produces, how much life it is in that tree, how beautiful is the color of the leaves. Suddenly you're contemplating, you're observing this. And if you do it in the presence of God, you're seeing something deeper than just the tree, right? Contemplation usually is related and connected to silence, stillness, presence, incarnation of the reality of this moment. And many people that hear about silence, they say, well, I cannot do that. I try that and my mind is racing. Yes, that is exactly the evidence that you need to practice more contemplation, because your mind cannot still be still and rest. Real rest comes from that mind that is able to sit still. So it's a practice and you will learn. So Teresa of Avila, one of the guides, if you want, in this spiritual journey, she talks and she says, settle yourself in solitude and you will come upon God in yourself. She's not saying that you will find that you are God, but she's saying that it's in this quieting of the heart, solitude and stillness, when I am able to discover and to hear God's words, God's direction in my life. Contemplation is a space of intimacy and communion with God. As you think, if you put God into your contemplation, it's communion and intimacy. And it says where the essence of all ritual is a stillness. You have to move slow, you have to allow stillness to be. And the essence of all teaching is silence. So you can find a lot more of resources about contemplation, but it's a practice that can produce a different fruit in your life, fruit of peace. Another practice, practice to do and to learn what nurtures your soul and do it. And that's a great question. What nurtures your soul? You know, we all need to feed our souls. We need to find times and things that actually give us life, joy, and energy. This is what sustains us in the long term, right? And let me tell you, with something, we are unique, and people have different things that nurture their soul. Some people might talk about gardening in a way that is amazing, how that nurtures their soul. Other people might talk about running in the same way, art, poetry, painting, stillness. What is might be doing something with wood. What is what brings this sense of nurturing life to your soul? Think of your soul as a little plant that needs to be watered. What waters your soul? So it's important to mention that your soul and my soul are not separated from our bodies, are very connected to our bodies and our psychology also, if you want. So normal and good and healthy rhythms in life are directly connected with the state of your soul. So healthy rhythms like adequate nutrition, rest, and exercise are important to nurture your soul into health. So that's another practice. Finally, choose joy. What a beautiful practice. Choose joy. What brings joy to your life? To your life? Can you choose joy? Remember, your brain, my brain are so biased towards the negative that we can die in it. You know, think of the negative all the time. There's enough evidence of negative. But you have a choice in certain moments to choose joy. You don't diminish the negative, the suffering, but you choose to see the positive, gratitude, a good relationship, a good conversation, a good friend, family. What brings joy? It's important to distinguish a little bit between that joy and sense of life in me and what I will call candy. Okay. Oh, what gives me joy is watching movies all day and having ice cream. Well, do you get the difference, right? I'm not talking about that kind of feeling good, but I'm talking about joy, right? Sugar is great and it's a blessing and brings joy, and there's a space for it. But a lot of sugar and only sugar will cause something worse than the lack of sugar, right? So I believe that things that bring joy to our lives are connected with simple things: nature, friends, family, gratitude, being alive. So think what in a way brings joy. Every time that you choose joy, you put faith in God because you believe that God is wanting to bring joy to your life. He's a God of joy. You actually also exercise faith in yourself, because you can give yourself, be compassionate with yourself, give yourself joy and rest, knowing that there's a process going in you and doesn't need to be done today in this minute. So you can be joyful in the midst of your journey. And somehow it's an act of faith in your community, because you can reach out to others and remember that it is in the context of relationship that we find real joy. Actually, it's beautiful to think and wonder what will be your life like if you will be cultivating or gathering, harvesting the gift and the fruit of joy, of Christ's peace in your own heart. Actually, Christ tells us, this is the element of reflection today, very clearly about a gift that he gives us. In the book of John, the Gospel of John, in chapter 14 and then 16, he has these words: "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." So how beautiful is to think that the gift of peace is a gift given by Jesus. It's his peace. The peace that went through Calvary is given to you and me. That's clearly what he says. It's hard to sometimes to receive that gift, but he also makes a distinction that the kind of peace I give you is not the peace that you find in the world. The world cannot give you that kind of peace, no matter how much, how good, how better you have. You might be lacking that peace. You might have all of that without peace. But the peace that he gives is a gift and is free. And you can receive it. Sabbath is about it. So let not your heart be troubled. Let not be afraid. Rest in this gift is given. Later in chapter 16, Jesus says, "I have said this thing to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world." I love the fact that Jesus does not diminishes or denies the fact of suffering and tribulation, hardship in the world. But in the midst of that, he's inviting us to consider that he is with us, that he has given us his peace, so we can take heart. So you see, contemplation, Sabbath, choosing joy, nurturing your soul, all of these things are connected with this gift. We can do it because we have that gift. So that's a reflection for today. This gift that Jesus has given us. As a practice, and as usual, I encourage you to prepare, to take time, schedule time, make time in your week, 30 minutes, and set them aside to pray, to be in the presence of God. Start by by breathing together, as we mentioned before. Take deep breaths a couple of times. Allow your body to align, to be aware that you are in your body, in the moment, in the now. Allow yourself to be silent for a couple of minutes and slow as best as you can your mind and your heart. When you're ready, reflect on your ability to learn and practice a new script to respond to anxiety. What can be useful to you in this matter? Then consider which practices are the most appealing for you to develop a less anxious lifestyle. What are the practices that you would like to practice? You don't need 4 of them. You can start with 1 of them, with 2 of them. What would you like to try? Eventually, when you're ready, present your reflection to God. Make it a prayer, humbly asking, courageously asking for God to help you overcome your anxiety. Remember, that is your prayer, and that's what God hears and listens. His joy is to be with you and acknowledge the desires of your heart. He's our helper. Finally, share what you're learning. Remember, this is not for the sake of teaching anything to anybody. This is for your sake. This is for your good. This is for your learning. Share what you're learning with a trusted person who loves you.